Good evening, happy Friday. We are here in Nashville and I'm joined by Chris Bentson, another redhead like myself. We're doing this about 30 minutes earlier because Chris and I are both very tired. We need to get some sleep.
And I'm very old.
Yeah, I'm going to a comedy show. I got tickets for Aziz Ansari. Are you a big Aziz Ansari fan?
No clue.
Chris only for the show. He's like, don't ask me any questions about anybody
Rock
in pop
and roll,
culture,
pop culture,
any movie questions, anything like that.
I'm not going to do well in the games, kids.
Yeah, so he's a comedian, and I was able to get tickets, and I'm excited about it.
For you.
Yeah, so it'll be a good time. So we'll be doing that afterwards. So we've got about an hour interview. I got to be very honest with you. I'm as excited about this interview as any I've done. I think the answers here are incredible. I think the content that you're bringing is going to be awesome. So I am stoked. We're actually here for the Impact 360 meeting in Nashville. We're speaking both tomorrow. I speak in the morning, and you speak right after me. If you don't know Chris is my first non-doctor interview for a good reason. He is an expert, a true expert I have written down here.
And a boring one, probably. It's not going to be so hip, guys.
Yeah, he said, what did you say? You said you're going to be the most boring interview I've had. So I don't know if that's true or not. I think it's going to be great. But president of Bentson, Koppel & Associates, we're going to discuss in this interview current trends in orthodontics, what to expect over the next 5, 10, and 15 years. We're also going to do, I think this is going to be fun, examples of ideal and also nightmare senior and associate doctors. I think it'll be interesting. We're going to dig in with lots of questions about DSOs. That's a hot topic these days. And then also what to consider if you're getting out of school in the next 6 months. Okay, that's a lot. And even more. But first, we have to play our theme song, Chris.
All right.
There we go. All right, Jeannie Moody says, nice. Hello, Jeannie. How are you? Jonathan Nicodesis is maybe my best viewer. He's on.
All right.
And he always submits questions. So, Jonathan, thanks for being such a good...
Low threshold of pleasure for some of these people
I
on
know,
a Friday
Jonathan,
night.
what are you doing? You could be out doing something else, I'm sure. But I'm glad you're here with us. And also, if the skin here is too pale, I apologize. If you can see through us, we're not vampires. But all right, so I want to read your bio, Chris. You've probably read this before, but Chris Bentson has been working with orthodontists regarding the business aspects of their practices for over 25 years. That's amazing. 25 years ago, you know what I was doing?
You were born.
I wasn't in diapers.
Yeah.
I was in third grade.
It's actually 30 years, but I was just...
Is it? Oh, this is old. Okay, well, all right. He is currently president of Bentson, Koppel & Associates. He's editor-in-chief of the Bentson Koppel Resource. It's a quarterly newsletter. I'm sure you're familiar with it. He's a frequent guest lecturer at orthodontic resident programs, study clubs, and orthodontic user meetings. You speak, 50 times a year? Is that right?
It's been that way lately.
It's incredible. Every time I'm at a meeting, Chris is speaking. That's awesome. He contributes to national periodicals and journals, and in his career, he's visited over 1,000 orthodontic practices in the U.S., Canada, and Australia. That's amazing.
Still married. It's amazing.
Still married.
Maybe that's a secret, right?
Maybe that's even more amazing. Your wife loves you. Or you make enough money that she's just, willing to stay with you.
Well, I don't know.
I'm kidding around. I wonder the same thing about my wife. Anna, I love you if you're out there. Jenny says, awesome, you look shiny and fresh. Shiny, I feel like that, I should have put powder on. Sorry. All right, so Chris, what brings you to Nashville?
I left town Wednesday. I was down at the AO Leadership Conference in Marco this week. I was in Atlanta this morning, got up here this afternoon, got to participate in some of the summit meeting that Mary Beth does, great clients, and get to speak tomorrow. So we were able to fit this in together. So it's been a busy week, but that's why I'm here. Yeah,
busy week for me as well, but I like I said, I'm super excited about this. So let's jump in. I will tell you, I have a lot of questions for Chris. We had a conversation on the phone about 2 weeks ago. It was 30 minutes long. I was like, I wish I'd recorded that because it was just so rapid and good stuff. So I'll start out with some easy questions, but to learn more about you, tell me about your family. How long you been married? How many kids you got? All that good stuff.
Okay. Got married a little bit later. I guess I was 29. She was 31. And met Dana on a blind date in Atlanta. We have 3 children. They're all kind of young adult millennials getting launched, done with tuition payments. I've got an attorney, a fireman, and a social worker that works for a nonprofit in DC. So, people that are giving back to the world and have big hearts. I'm super blessed.
That's great. Awesome. So I had someone actually ask this question. Chris said I actually guessed 2 of my questions and my game for tonight. So Chris, get out of my head. But he wanted to know how you got involved in the orthodontic industry, and I think that's a good question that I had myself.
Yeah. I rocked out of the practice management cradle in Atlanta in 1988. One of my best friends from a single Sunday school class was with Xerox. He left Xerox to go with this practice management company for orthodontists. I told him it was very foolish. 6 months later, he invited me to come over, and I left my job and together ourselves and a bunch of other people built that company to about 1,000 people. It's now part of the CareStream product set, and then my wife and I had 3 young children and wanted to be closer to one set of our parents. She was from North Carolina. Her side won, and so we moved to North Carolina, and was looking for something to do. I knew orthodontics my whole career, and so I met Jerry Clark, who had a business doing valuation and transitions. He was an orthodontist, and I bought that business from him, and so that's how I got into this.
Okay, very cool. All right, so let's jump into some kind of questions. It's going to be, I think with you deal with such a wide array of topics with orthodontists. I mean, young, old, in between. Those that are hoping to be an associate, those who are hoping to buy a practice, those who are hoping to start a practice. So I think you'll see tonight a wide array of questions. But the first one's going to be for residents. And so if I'm a resident and I'm open to moving anywhere, what options should I be considering?
That is a great question. Our first piece of advice to residents is go where you're going to be happy. If that's near family, go there. There's a practice to join, there's a practice to buy, or if there's not, there's one to start. So we think number one priority should be, try to find a place where you're happy. If you have a lot of options, we know that there's certain parts of the country that will perform better than others, or at least have less competition, and that's usually places you don't want to move to. But the core part of the United States is a great place to go. But figure out where you're going to be happy. Figure out what's your ideal size of city, your amenities, nearness to airport, how much you want to travel, those kinds of things, and go there. I think you don't have a lot of limitations there, so there's not one place that's better than the others. Shoot, we're in Nashville. It's got 1 million people. It's going to have 2 million people. It's growing like crazy. Probably the hottest town in America for young people right now. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for orthodontists here, and they're all going to be good.
Yeah. Are there any states, I realize this might be a sensitive question for you, are there any states that you would think you would avoid if you're a resident and you're getting out?
Yeah, Utah's been tough for a long time. Just a lot of practices there. We're actually taking people out of Utah.
All the Utah orthodontists watching are so happy to hear that. Yeah, say that again.
Don't come. But, some of the bigger cities, like Georgia, Atlanta is a very DSO-oriented dental city. Mm-hmm. Dallas is. Arizona, Phoenix is. Those cities, were at one time better than they are right now, I think, to start up and go, set your stake in the ground. But you can make it work just about anywhere if you want to bad enough.
So if you had to name 3, and I'm putting you on the spot, so I'm sorry. 3 states that are looking really good lately, maybe if you're a resident.
Yeah, I think that, I'll do 3 cities, and then maybe we can attach those states. But, Nashville's probably the hottest city in the country right now. Denver is super hot, in a good place. Texas, just everywhere, seems to be a very positive state. There's a lot of population. There's great tax laws. It's very business friendly. I would probably pick Texas, Colorado, and this part of Tennessee where we are right now.
Keep them out of the west part, Chris.
Right.
I'm regretting that I asked. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I think Nashville's booming.
Yeah.
Memphis is staying where Memphis is. You don't want to go there if you're a resident.
Memphis.
No, it's terrible. Quick question here. What's better, a cold start or a practice acquisition? And I'll give you a little background. I did a cold start.
Yeah.
Now, in fairness, there was nothing to acquire, I don't think. I don't think there were any options for me in that sense. So sometimes you don't have options. It's sort of like when you're starting to practice and you're like, well, what's the ideal square footage for a practice? Well, it's probably 3,250. It's something like that. Well, there's only either 1,800 or there's 4,800. Sometimes there's only so many options. But if you could choose cold start or practice acquisition, what would you say?
It depends on what you're solving for. I think it's a question we've done a lot of research. We've written some articles. Doug Koppel, my business partner, has written some articles about this, buy versus build. I think the truth is, again, if you can't find something to buy and you know where you want to be, and if that was where you ended up, the town you went to, then start. Only 10% of our young doctors start practices are residents that graduate, so very few. Mm-hmm. You can get the money, it's scarier. If you're solving for what's the best economic choice for me, we can run you through some analysis that'll show because you earn money in an acquisition in the early years, even though you've got debt, you'll probably end up in a career in a better spot financially if you acquire versus start up. But they're both great options. I kind of wish more people started up because I think my life story is go where there's family, be near where the things that you care about and want to be about. And so I think certainly the millennials kind of feel that way. So go where you're going to be happy. That's my biggest piece of advice.
Yeah, I think that's kind of consistently what I see is that it's smarter to do an acquisition if it exists.
Yeah.
You might say for some people there's more of a risk, though, in acquiring, maybe to some degree, and I think there's a beauty in being able to sort of shape the culture from the ground up.
Yep.
But I'll be honest, as someone who did a cold start, there are many, many, many things that you take for granted if you do acquire a practice, and things that you're sort of working like on a treadmill that never ends when you're starting from cold, because you have to reinvent everything. So
right.
It was very challenging, but on this side of it, I'm like, well, I'm glad I did it, but I didn't really have a lot of other options. So let me ask you a sort of series of questions, and you're aware of these questions, but I think for a lot of doctors out there, there's this idea of, well, should I get an associate? Should I get a partner? Or if you're a resident, that's likely kind of what you're headed down the road of is being a junior partner or an associate or whatever you want to call that. And so I want to talk about some characteristics of an ideal senior doctor and an ideal junior partner associate, mainly because I think it'll be of benefit to people out there watching, and not just so that they can feel critical of their junior partner or their senior doctor, because I'm sure there's some of that too, but just in terms of trying to decide what you need to focus on. So let's do this in order. Characteristics of an ideal senior doctor. Give me a few.
Okay. Senior doctors need to have a long memory, and by that I mean they need to remember what they felt like when they were you, which was frightened, which is a little bit unsure, which is not understanding how everything works. So they need to be a mentor, to be a coach, and to not expect you to come in and immediately build their business to a larger enterprise, which is a lot of time what their expectation is. So that would be probably the biggest characteristic, is just remember kind of where you are when you're young and how they were 30 years ago before they invited you in, and have that kind of empathy and to take a little bit more time and be a little bit softer probably as an approach.
Okay.
Doesn't always work that out.
I was going to what percentage of the time does it work out that way, you think?
They need some coaching. We don't remember. Every dad told you, he climbed uphill to school, in the snow barefoot, and it's kind of that kind of feeling.
Sure.
It keeps rolling through.
Yeah, it's easy to feel a certain way at one age and then do the exact opposite.
Right.
I'm turning into my dad, even,
And there's a commercial about
both
that.
good and bad. There's a really good commercial, actually. There's a Geico thing. All right, so on the converse, what are the characteristics of an ideal junior partner and associate?
Yeah, I think patience for sure. I mean, a lot of times you want to go faster, or you want to implement a new idea and you can't understand why you're not getting the green light to do that. But an understanding of where your income is going to start and the pace at which it's going to advance ahead of time is helpful. Arrogance is not good when you're young. It's not good anytime, but to try to come in and want to change things because you think you might know better and kind of forget, on the other hand, that for 30 years this has been working in some manner for the senior doctor is many times not appreciated. But those are some of the things I'd be careful about that we've seen not work well from junior doctors, but just a little bit slower pace maybe than what you want to attack at.
All right, and you probably have some examples of this, but what about now on the other side, nightmare senior doctors? Where do you see it where it brings in a lot of issues? What are some characteristics there?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most common one from a nightmare on the senior doctor side is they bring you in as an associate and they want you to grow their business. And if you can grow their business, they'll let you become a partner or what have you. We think that's a very untenable, unrealistic position because when you think about it, if you're an associate and you're not an owner, and you go out into the community and talk to the referring doctors and they say, what's your deal with Dr. Bentson? I'm not a doctor, by the way, but, hey, I'm working for him, but if I do really good, he's going to let me, be his partner. They're not going to refer to you. You don't really have any stroke outside of relationships you might have. So it's not realistic. We always coach senior doctors that associates don't grow businesses. They allow business owners to grow their business by focusing on development and things that they need to go do. But associates really, by definition, can't grow your business. I feel very strongly about that. And we see senior doctors make that mistake a lot. Call us up, complain. This person hasn't brought me any patients. I said, no kidding. They're not supposed to.
Interesting. That's a huge pearl right there.
Yeah.
I'm currently in this sort of situation where I'm trying to decide, well, do I need an associate? Do I need a partner? Do I want an associate? Do I want a partner? So for me, this is helpful information too. I don't know. I don't know if I'd be more in the category of the ideal senior partner or the nightmare senior partner. I'm a little worried.
Yeah, I know pretty much that you'd be ideal.
Well, that's sweet of you to say while you're on camera, but I think I'd be okay. I think I'd try, but there are times where I would not be. What about some bad decisions that you see senior doctors make and you see junior partners? Let's do senior doctors first. What are some bad decisions you see?
Just not communicating. I mean, when you see the scary stories in orthodontics are about partnerships that went awry, that didn't work out, didn't go the distance. We got a business divorce. Why does that happen? Because we didn't communicate with each other. That's the senior partner's primary responsibility, is to communicate with the younger partner. And finances. We didn't explain well enough at the beginning how the money was going to flow. Whether it's just salary or if there's a bonus structure or whatever, and we didn't talk about these things, and those are the two things that cause frustration. So I think you've got to be committed if you're going to be a doctor that's going to bring in an associate, to communicate with that doctor. How's it going? What's not working? What can we do better on? What do you need from me that you're not getting? What do I need from you that I'm not getting? And that tends to foster a positive relationship. But we don't see that all the time, especially in men. We're not built to be as good at communicators as the other side.
What are we good at? Can I get some comments from the audience? What are men good at? I'm not quite sure. So, actually, you know what? Redheads, we have it so tough. We should be immune from that.
We should be.
Yeah, let's have something that we're.
It's hard. We can't get a tan. I mean,
get a tan.
That's one of my genie wishes.
Yeah, I wish there was a filter I could just push and it would make us look really. You actually
spray on.
Objectively look tan.
Am I sweating? What is the deal? I don't know. I spent a lot of time outside.
Dark shade of red, but it's all good. At least we share that in common. And actually, I joked with Chris before the show. I feel like as I put that promo up, I get to see what I'm going to look like in a few years. I feel like you could be my dad. We could pass for father and son, right?
I'd take you as a son.
We are sitting so close to one another that it's sort of this weird father-son thing. All right, we have a game. Chris asked me, "Are we doing a game?" Like, of course we're doing a game. You don't have
really the most unfun guest.
No, you're doing great. You're doing great. So here's our song.
I've heard that song before.
This is UB40.
Oh, thank you.
This is a classic. So Red Wine. It's harder than you think to find a song with red hair referenced. So I didn't find one, but I did find the first song you think of with the word red in it. Now, are you a red wine drinker or no?
Not right at the moment.
Not right at the moment. We're not drinking red wine. No. I like red wine. I think it's good. But I like that song. So we're going to do a game called Red Alert. Couldn't find a song with red alert in it. We're just all over the place. Red wine, red hair, red alert. These are going to be trivia questions about red hair, because obviously we both have red hair. And I think you at home will find this interesting. And Chris, you are under no pressure to answer any of these correctly, but we will be keeping score.
Okay, let's do it.
Multiple choice, okay? So, red alert, again, questions about redheads.
Guess at least, right?
You will guess well, I'm sure. Don't try and look at the answers. All right, so which of the following songs is not about a redhead? All right? A, Jolene by Dolly Parton, Night Moves by Bob Seger, I Fell in Love with a Girl by the White Stripes, or Redheaded Stranger by Willie Nelson.
Which one is not?
Not about a redhead.
I don't know the third song. I've never heard it, so that's the one I'm going to guess.
Okay, I Fell in Love with a Girl by the White Stripes. That is actually about a redhead. So the one that's not about a redhead is Night Moves. There's a line, she was a black-haired beauty with big dark eyes.
Bob Seger?
Yeah, Bob, did it bring anything back to you?
I was a Seger
fan in high school. And the Silver Bullet Band?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so you're 0 for 1. That's good. Did y'all know that? I don't know. Look, we've got people. No, I don't think anyone knew that.
Nobody knows.
Jolene
this.
actually is about a redhead, so now you know. So those three were about redheads. All right, so this is a good one. Tradition from this country declares that being a redhead is a sign both that one has a fiery temper, true, and is possibly crazy, true. In fact, one proverb from this country reads, "There was never a saint with red hair." Is this Greece, Bulgaria, Russia, or Turkmenistan?
Russia.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
That's right. How did you know that?
It's my people.
It's my people. My wife grew up in Russia, and she knew that immediately. She's like, "Oh yeah, they say that. Isn't that terrible?
That's crazy.
There's never a saint with red hair." In fact, there probably were some saints with red hair. There's like an Irish or a Scottish saint, one or the other. Mary Magdalene was a saint, but they
I would have guessed Ireland if it would have been on there, but since it wasn't, I was like, okay, it's Russia.
It's Russia. Yeah, very good. Actually,
So
Russia
it was
gets
a
its
guess.
name from red hair. All right, we'll move on. Which of these famous American poets had red hair? Walt Whitman, Robert Frost, Emily Dickinson, or Edgar Allan Poe? I mean, I don't know that I would have known either.
All the pictures I've seen of them are on, caricatures,
white.
right? So let's give it to the gal.
That's a good guess.
Yeah.
Emily Dickinson had red hair. Very good.
Yeah.
She was actually such an introvert that she would stay locked in her room. But she had red hair.
We've got a lot of complications, us redheads.
I know. We have so much to deal with. So 2 more questions. True or false?
2 for 3, by the way.
You're 2 for 3. You're doing great. He's doing better than I think anyone else at home. So
Yeah.
true or false? Redheads need more anesthesia during surgery.
False.
It's actually true. According to a few studies, redheads need 20% more anesthesia than people with dark hair. And that's one of those internet
That's why
facts.
I can't sleep at night?
I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, it could be.
Wait, do you use anesthesia to go to sleep?
No, I probably
That didn't work
need
out
some.
That didn't work out well for Michael Jackson. There's actually a gene that gives us red hair. It's a recessive gene that also plays a role in pain, and so it's mutated in redheads. Okay, what is the most common eye color for redheads? Blue, brown, green, or hazel?
Mine are blue, but I think it's green.
You have blue. Oh, you do have blue eyes.
Yeah.
So it's actually brown. That's the most common for redheads. What's interesting? Oh, I see someone talking about Gritty, the Flyers mascot. Don't even know why, but I love that. I love that mascot. The most common eye color for redheads is brown. Actually, blue eyes and red hair are the rarest combo on Earth.
Here, there you have it.
This is great. We have a unicorn
I'm very unique.
with this. Yeah, that's awesome. All right, so that was Red Alert Part 1.
Are there more games?
There's a Part 2 of that coming up. I can tell you're excited.
All right.
Chris,
We'll
you did
see.
great. You got, what did you
Okay,
get?
let's just go through the questions.
2 out of 5. Yeah, we're doing good. So give it up for Chris. Someone guessed hazel eyes. No, you're wrong. Okay, so moving to some other questions. What should successful orthodontists do over the next 5 to 10 years to stay successful? Assuming things change.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've given a lot of thought recently about, 2 practices on, either side of the street in the same town, same drawing area, same deployment of technology, same, pricing structure and everything. Why does one grow and the other is flat or declining? And it's kind of the tenet of what I'll be talking about in 2019 in some of my lectures, but I think you have to have a really good notion of the disciplines of business, the sales discipline, the marketing discipline, the accounting discipline, strategy, and also technology deployment, both social media deployment and also just technology to run the clinical side of your business. And we've done pretty good as a profession in there, but I think the difference maker, the people who do better and will do better over the next decade, it's going to be about culture. I think about the practices that are really kicking it and in the same town as practices that are really struggling. And there's just a different feel when you walk through the door. And I think that's a leader who has a mission statement and a vision that he can teach through his team, that his team can then deliver to the patients in the community, and it's infectious. And I think there's a lot of science now in the business world that that is the difference maker. So you got to have the hard skills. The business skills are important, and we all are pretty parallel on those. But the people that do it really well are the leaders who teach what they're about to their team, and their team buys it and delivers it to the patient. I don't know. That's kind of a heady answer, but that's
great. That's great. It's interesting. You'll see tomorrow if you wake up. We're staying up late with this interview, but if you wake up and listen, the first part of my lecture on social media and digital marketing is actually a pretty long section on just that. It's sort of culture and understanding. I think the way that your team, whether they're positive or they're negative, I think it really impacts your ability to tell a compelling story.
Yeah.
And I think really what it gets to is it's hard to do social media if you're sort of bummed out and everyone's negative and not on board with it. So,
and if you're listening to this and you say, that's just not me, I'm not a leader that can do that, that's cool, because if you know that about yourself, you guys are smart, become what I call a velvet-covered brick and find somebody on your team that can do this as your MSN, for you, and it can still work out quite well if that's not your style. But culture is going to trump a lot of things, I think, in the next decade. It's going to be important.
Yeah, so it's interesting. A lot of big businesses now have culture. I don't know what they call them. Like it's not your CFO, but it's your culture
Minister of culture.
Yeah,
kind
right.
of
What are they
person.
going to call it? So
Yeah.
I know, like Gary Vaynerchuk, he has one in his
Right.
team, and so if you aren't good at it, maybe it's a portion of someone's job description is to kind of be the cheerleader of the culture.
Absolutely.
maven. So,
Absolutely.
which is definitely a departure, and there's probably a lot of psychology that we could discuss in that way and why that is the way. But let's move into a big topic. I think this is one that I saw a few people ask about, and it's definitely a hot topic in the orthodontic world. Neon Canvas, we were getting our spot at AAO coming up in May in LA. I'm assuming you'll be there and probably speaking 6 times or something, but how many times are you speaking?
Twice.
Me too. Hey, look at us. See? Father and son.
That's right.
But I saw a very large DSO that had a huge chunk of space, and I'm sure there's more on that map that will be added later, but it's about DSO, so Dental Service Organizations, correct?
You got it, yep.
All right, I wonder how many people that say DSOs know what DSO stands for.
Not very many, so we call them
yeah.
corporate, and if you call a DSO owner corporate dentistry, they get very offended with that
that
term,
right?
so you got to be careful.
Oh, but they shouldn't be offended. They're millionaires. What do they
That's
care?
right.
All right, so DSOs, that's a big open-ended sign. What are your views on them? But how much do you think they're going to penetrate our industry, and how will things change in response?
Yeah, it's a question that I wrestle with, a lot and ask a lot of people. It's kind of the question of the day in dentistry and the specialists. How deep does this go is really the question. And, does it take us over? Does it end? What happens? No one really knows, but I think, let's start with where we are, which is about 16 to 18%, depending on who's counting, of general dentistry, or the whole dental market is in DSO hands, if you will, at the Mo. The specialty of orthodontics is probably half that to a little bit more, so 8 to 10%. So that's where we are right now. That means we've got 9,000 orthodontists in North America. We've got 10% of those working in DSOs. When you survey the resident base, 65% of the residents say they want to work as employees when they get out. That's pretty radically new information. So I think when you look at some of the other marketplaces where we've had a lot of consolidation, vision, the dermatology, vet space, medical space, it kind of planes out between 30 and 40%. And that's the answers I get from a lot of the PE guys, from a lot of the people that are in there. So it's got a long runway. How long it takes to get there is the other question. Do we get there in 5 years? Do we get there in 10 years? Does it take 30 years? Because we'd like it to go slower rather than faster. So I think it's a 20-plus year deal to get to 30%, and I can't see much more clearly than that, but that would be my best guess.
So a generation to 30%.
Yeah.
And you say right now we're at what percent?
I think the specialty orthos are right around 10 all in, with people that have worked for PDOs and GP and Western Dental and Pacific and Smile Doctors and those kind of places.
Sure. That's a huge change.
None of us saw it coming or really planned on it, but it's not bad. It's going to be okay. It gives residents who have a lot of debt a great place to go and satisfy that debt. It gives people who only want to work 3 or 4 days, 3 days a week, a place to go. And you can bounce out of these places and then go do your own deal after you get some of this debt service done. So it's not a bad thing. It's serving a place, and we need to learn to compete against them as solo and small group practitioners. And we're doing a lot of study, and we need to hear from people on the podiums that are encouraging, not discouraging about this information.
Yeah,
Ortho's good, and it's always going to be good for the next, as far as I can see. If your kid wants to be an orthodontist, let him be an orthodontist. It's going to be great.
Yeah, I've tried to remain agnostic about DSOs because I just don't know enough to have a very firm stance against it or for it. I'm not involved in a DSO, and so I think it's probably healthy to learn more about it. I guess I probably shouldn't be agnostic about it. I should probably ask some of these deep soul-searching questions and learn more. And maybe that's why we just ask these questions. Let me ask this as sort of a follow-up. This is actually from Jonathan Nicozisis, my best viewer. He says, the investor easy money of DSOs mopping up practices cannot last forever. His words, not mine. But do you see or forecast a timeline when the investment money starts looking elsewhere to place its money and DSO growth starts to decelerate? It's a long question.
Yeah. Hey, Jonathan, I think you're right. It's not going to go at the pace that it's going at forever. Not enough money to do that, but it's not going to slow down anytime soon is my forecast, if that's what you're asking for. 2019 is going to be huge growth in the DSO space, as will 2020, 21, 22, 23. It's just, no one's tripped on their shoelaces. The economy, if the global economy and the U.S. economy goes in the tank, maybe the money dries up for a while. But for the next 4 or 5 years, it's going to be really hot. We get a lot of calls. We have a lot of interaction with these people with money, and it likes dentistry and it likes orthodontics. So it doesn't slow down. It will slow down, and I think that 30% range, when we start hitting 20s, towards the 20s, the money will slow down. It'll become more of a piranha market where the big guys will be eating the little guys. Just my best guess, but I don't know.
Yeah, okay, good stuff. All right, so I want to kind of shift away from DSOs. There was a question on here that we won't go into, but in short, Jonathan asked if you felt like geography affected DSOs. So like if a DSO in the Northeast, are they more affected by, sale prices for practices? And you basically said, not really.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think, some of these DSOs like to be in the core part of the U.S. where there's not as much competition. Wisconsin, Minnesota, Missouri, Arkansas, those places. And those prices that they're buying practices are similar to the prices for practices that sell in Massachusetts or, Georgia or Texas or Colorado or other places. So I don't see a lot of price disparity on geography. Which if you want to sell to a DSO is probably positive,
Yeah, right.
You can get your number anywhere right now.
So I saw someone ask a question, how do we compete with DSOs? And I don't know that you or I are really prepared to answer that any more than just to say, my perspective would be to focus on making your practice as great as it can be. That's maybe a lame answer. What's your better answer?
I think it's kind of how I feel about a lot of changes in the specialty and dentistry. The better question for me maybe is, what can we learn from the DSOs to make our practices better? Because what can they do better than we can do? Well, got a lot of MBAs that come in and say, well, we can, run the back office better. We can run insurance better. We can buy stuff better. We can, market better and those kinds of things. So how can we use ourselves as groups or in these study clubs, whether they're on Facebook or Mary's List or something like that? Let's get involved and try to leverage ourselves together to do the things that the DSOs say they can do, and operate more efficiently and better. And so you can't go it alone anymore. I think these Facebook groups are good for lots of reasons, but that's one reason, is to share information and then to help organize ourselves maybe in some better ways, and maybe even from the AO politically. I was just at the AO leadership meeting, and should we have an AO buying group? I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's great. Yeah, I think that short of something like DSOs coming in and showing us that we're weak is the wrong word, but that we're open to things changing our industry, we're not going to react to it. We're not going to change. And so we need to be proactive in the face of things that are changing, and get better at what we're doing. Because we do have great margins as orthodontists, and that's why they're coming after our businesses. Right?
And the market's expanding, so I think there's room for everybody. I mean, that's a whole probably another hour podcast with somebody that's smart, but market expansion is a real deal.
For sure. Well, let's shift into this. Chris, I would say this, not just because you're on this, but I think you're one of the few people in orthodontics that just about everyone likes. I think there's probably 6 of you, maybe. And so I hope to one day be one of those. But it's been several months, but you were criticized at one point for being too supportive of Invisalign. And to be honest, and I told you I was going to ask this question, I just want to give you the opportunity to kind of talk to that. So some of you out there may not be aware of that. But there was a time where I think there was a lot of criticism of those speaking for Invisalign. I think there is a lot of, in fairness, nervousness over Invisalign and what they might do or what they might not do, and some moves that they made over the years that were maybe not positive for the average practicing orthodontist. You speak some for Invisalign. You also speak very positively about aligners in general. And so I think that was where maybe that came from. But kind of what are your thoughts on that? Where do you think the misunderstandings came from?
Well, I think I'll just tell my journey with how I even got to be able to speak with Invisalign. That company's 22 years old. I've been in the business 30 years. I got to see it launch. I thought it was interesting technology, and I've always been interested in technology in those companies 22 years ago. But they didn't make a whole lot of noise. And then as a evaluator of practices, which is what our company does, when we begin to take apart practice expenses, what we began to see is if you used Invisalign, your top line might go up, but your bottom line almost always went down. So I actually had a very adversarial relationship with Invisalign up until about 3 years ago, because I saw them as a choice, a modality choice in the marketplace, but one where if you did very much of it, you made less money, even though your revenue might go up because of the lab fee. And so they invited me to come to a meeting in 2016, and I said, I don't think you want me in the room because I'm not really a fan. And they said, how come? And I said, because if you use your product, you make less money. And they said, that's why we want you to come, so let's dig in and try to get our arms around the profitability problem. And I got to know the company, and I liked it actually, and I had heard, like a lot of people had, the patents are going away and so forth, but you begin to see kind of the foundation that's underneath this 22 years and the investment that's there and the tracks that are laid down. And I came away from the meeting going, A, it's not going to go away. B, 2 out of 10 active cases in North America are in aligners. And my opinion is, now that I look at the world, it's even stronger today than it was in 2016, is that as we move forward, brackets will become less relevant over time. They won't disappear. But these digital lab products, whether they're Invisalign or other products, SureSmile, Insignia, Incognito, and now all the other aligner products from the other companies, we have to economically change the way fundamentally we construct our businesses as orthodontists on the profit statement, on the P&L level. And I've learned how to do that, and that's what I teach when I go to Invisalign. But if you go to any of those lectures, it's really like we're talking about tonight. It's what are the trends in the industry. We talk about DSOs. We talk about, you should be texting. We talk about all the social media stuff you should be doing and so forth. And then there's 10 minutes of that where I teach, listen, here's how you need to manage your business P&L if you're going to get deeper into aligners. And that's why they have me out there talking for them. So, I understand people don't always know what you say, what you don't say. I certainly don't make a living speaking for Invisalign, but I respect them as a company, and that's kind of my answer to that, long answer to that question.
Sure. No, that's great. I mean, it's a thing where, there's fears about companies that get too big. Is you're a sort of a cottage industry orthodontist, which I am. I own my own practice. I don't love the idea of DSOs coming into town. I don't love the idea of a big company that has a lot more money and a lot more MBAs than I have and would ever have, doing different things. And one of those questions I have is sort of a follow-up. And you think aligners, and you've kind of said this, that it'll go 80% aligners, 20% braces, somewhere in that range. I don't know if I believe that or not. I don't know how any of us know or can predict the future. I see in my little neck of the woods that braces are as popular as they've ever been. I especially see in 20 to 30-year-old African-American females where I am in Memphis that they all want metal braces. Yeah. I've heard similar things from people in California and Arizona with Hispanic population where they really want braces. And I think it comes down to, do you want people to know that you are going through orthodontics or not? And so I think that can be region-specific, that can be racial and all sorts of other things. But I don't know in 10, 20 years how that will change. I also think that kids are not great at wearing things, and so we had this period, it's interesting to me, we had this period of time where bionators are a huge deal and all these removable functional appliances, and now we're sort of moving back to that. Now we have clear aligners with a Mara built in, and it's sort of like, well, we couldn't get them to wear it when it was a Myros or a bionator, and now we're going to get them to wear it when it's an aligner that costs 7 times as much. So there are some interesting questions I have, but let me ask this. Do you think that Invisalign, in order to continue being profitable in the face of all these other companies, do you think they will start hiring general dentists, or they'll start hiring orthodontists? I mean, they have stores or experiences. Do you think that's something that they'll do? And there's no way for you to know for sure. What do you think?
No, I think they will not. I think it is the most common probably fear that orthodontists have about the company Invisalign is, when are they going to cut us out? Yeah. They said they're not going to. I think it would decimate the business. There's only 12 Invisalign stores right now. They'd have to have, just an amazing number of them. Then we'd have to be able to see that ramp and grow. And it just doesn't fit their model. I mean, they want to be like, Tesla or Apple in their experience. They want consumers to experience the brand. I think they're more interested in trying to tap in, instead of just 4 million case starts a year. We've seen SDC, we may or may not have time to talk about them, but they're expanding the market. by 10% in the U.S., probably looks like 20% in the next year or two. And they want to tap into that market expansion. There's a lot of people that would like to get a better smile and aren't showing up in orthodontic offices. So how can we tap into that, or do we even want to? These are questions for the specialty. I was just down at the leadership meeting, and that's one of their big concerns is, do you think, Chris, that Align is going to cut us out? And I don't think they are, but it doesn't matter what I think. You know, they're going to do what they want. It's, you know, they're going to run their business to make money, and right now I see no indication that that would ever occur.
Okay, well, I hope you're right. You know, we've got companies where, you know, I know dentists driving a van for $1,000 a day, and how can you blame them?
Yeah.
I would love to take $1,000 a day to drive a van. So I think that's, yeah, all this is very much changing. Now, Chris, I know you're not going to be excited.
Another game.
No, it's the same game. It's round 2 of
more red
questions.
questions.
It's more red hair questions.
Well, we got red hair. Let's do it.
Chris, I'm disappointed. I feel like you're ashamed to be a redhead because you're just not excited
No,
about.
I think this is really fun.
Red alert.
This is my favorite part of this hour so far.
Oh my
is this
gosh.
next 5
No, it's
questions.
not.
Come on, let's go.
Look at this. Oh man, you know how long I spent on these questions here. All right, so 5 more questions on redheads. You can participate out there. I saw some of you chiming in. Thank you for doing that. According to Greek mythology, of which I'm sure you're an expert, what do redheads turn into when they die? This is true. Well, it's not true, but you know.
Devils.
Well, that might be one of the options. Spirits, vampires, copper, or zombies. What do redheads turn into when they die, according to Greek mythology? Does anyone know this?
I have no idea.
Well, you have to venture a guess.
Spirit.
Spirit. No, I made that one up. That's good. It's actually vampires. We turn into vampires, apparently, in Greek mythology. Nothing's good for us, right? All right, so which one of the following famous painters had red hair? Is it Michelangelo, Vincent van Gogh, Leonardo da Vinci, or Sandro Botticelli?
Not the Italian. So let's go with Leonardo, but I don't think that's right either.
No, it's not da Vinci. It's actually Vincent van Gogh.
Is it Vincent?
Yeah, so he's got a lot of...
One-eared Vincent.
Yeah, 1 year, and I've actually seen that painting. It's in London in the Courtauld Institute. I was walking around this little art gallery by myself. We were talking about earlier being a little bit introverted. We're both a little introverted. And I got to go to an art museum by myself, which is like, that's the best. And Woody Allen was there, which was really weird. So I followed Woody Allen. And he was with his girlfriend, wife, whatever. And I followed Woody Allen around a little art museum in London by myself. But anyway, it is Vincent van Gogh. If you'll see in his paintings, he draws himself with red hair. Okay. In what year was the redhead emoji released? Was it 20? Have you ever used the redhead emoji?
I haven't.
I used it to promote our interview.
I didn't even know what an emoji was until about 18 months ago.
Well, then we'll see if you can
year?
guess.
So I'm going to guess 2016.
Well, that is an option. Is it 2018, 2016, 2015, 2012? Does anyone know when the redhead...
2016.
Hey, there's Shannon Brockway. Hey, Shannon, I saw you earlier. It's actually 2018. Shannon got it right. Yeah, it just came out last
recently.
Year. Isn't that crazy? And there's only you have a mustache. That's the only option. It's every redhead has a mustache, apparently. It's really ridiculous. But all right, 2 more questions. Which country has the highest concentration of redheads? And wait for the options. Is it Ireland, Scotland, Wales, or Great Britain?
Oh my gosh. Ireland.
That is what I would guess. Technically, it's Scotland. Can you believe that? Ireland has 10% concentration of redheads. Scotland has 13%.
Fake news, perhaps?
It could be fake news. We'll Google it. We'll check it.
Right.
Worldwide, there's only 2% of people who have red hair. So again, it's
rare.
rare. And it's becoming even
We're
more
unique.
rare. Yep, as we
We're
spread
special.
out. We're very... This reminds me of that skit on Saturday Night Live where he looks into the mirror and talks about him being special. I'm not remembering the name. All right, a lot of guests for Wales. All right, last question. Which of the following U.S. presidents did not have red hair? Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, Martin Van Buren, or Teddy Roosevelt?
They all wore white wigs. George Washington.
So, this round did not go well for you. I'm sorry. This is 0 for 0. So, George Washington actually did have red hair. I didn't know it either. I think I would have gotten all these wrong. Thomas Jefferson famously had red hair, even when he was older.
I don't like this game.
It's over. It's over, Chris.
Okay, good.
George Washington had red hair as a kid. Martin Van Buren had red hair as a kid. Teddy Roosevelt, brown hair. Get this. There were other presidents who had red hair. Calvin Coolidge, Andrew Jackson, Rutherford B. Hayes had a red beard. William Taft, our fattest president, also a redhead, and JFK sort of had reddish, red-brown hair.
Taft. Me and Taft.
Me and Taft, you got a lot in common, yeah. You know where Taft was from?
Apparently you do.
Well, no, let's play this song. All right. He's from Cincinnati. Cincinnati.
Okay,
I went to there's a Taft, it's like an ale house or something there. It's really beautiful old converted church, and Taft's face is on everything. So, all right, we have a few more questions. We didn't lose as many people during that game as I expected.
Okay, good.
Sometimes guests,
Thank you.
they try and hide when they don't like something. Chris is not hiding it. So anyway, we got to do the games. The games are fun. All right, so we wanted to talk about this. You mentioned it. We're going to try and avoid saying their name. But what effect is Big Purple having on orthodontic offices? So Big Purple, direct-to-consumer aligners.
The one that's headquartered in this town?
Yeah, we're in Nashville, aren't we? That's
We're in
interesting.
Nashville.
We'd be bringing them up. So
You know,
what effect is it having?
I think at the moment none. Anecdotally, we're seeing some practices feel a little bit of pressure, but by and large none. Having said that, again, I would say our reaction to them is not, gosh, they're evil people and, they're probably spirits or vampires.
Yeah, or copper.
Or whatever. But, what can we learn? And I think what we're learning is, there is a large audience of people in the United States, because they're not in Canada. This is just U.S., and it's hard to find numbers on this particular group, but they're doing a lot of cases. And, the retail model works. We can learn from that. And I think orthodontists should try to tap into that model if they want to, because I think it's an expanding group, and we do only start 4 million cases a year in the U.S. or in North America, and if that could be 6 million or 8 million or 10 million, or you look at their numbers and they say the potential is 50 million. If it could just be a little bit bigger, there's enough for everybody if we can figure out how to get those patients that we want and that want us in our offices. And I think there's a large percentage of their patients that want to be under the supervision of a specialist, but don't think you're an option. So that's a marketing message that could change. 2019 and forward, I think, is a lot of experimentation because the playbook hasn't been written. So let's go figure it out and participate if we want to. If you want to in your practice, and you don't want to in your practice, that's cool. But if you want to, I think there's a huge opportunity. The next decade could be really, really good for folks who play in that area.
So I've seen a lot of different things. I've seen everything from people creating their own aligner brand and website and all this sort of thing, and sending out direct mail to sort of trying to latch on to the bigger groups in Invisalign, namely. There's a lot of options. What do you think is the smartest way if you're trying to compete with, let's say, a $2,000 to $4,000 clear aligner product where it's limited involvement in your office, less doctor time? What's maybe the best route or the most profitable route to go about doing that?
I'm seeing a lot of very well-run, nice practices do play around with tiered pricing, a good, better, best kind of pricing, and giving the consumer the opportunity to say yes to any of those choices. And that we just haven't done it long enough to know how it's going to really affect our bottom lines, but most of the anecdotal information that I see right now shows that those practices are actually growing their revenue line, not at the expense of the bottom line. So it's making healthier practices, and they're filling out more chair time. I don't know if there's too many orthodontists that I would say are at capacity. So I don't know. Ben Burris has a whole nother model, and he's been writing about it, and you can kind of see on the social media pages, he's doing it all with brackets at a lower fee tier, and it seems to be working out really nicely. So, and that's a very, very new model. We haven't seen in ortho before. We don't know, but you got to play around with it, I think, in your practice and figure out what works for you, because I think there's great growth.
Sure. You mentioned on the phone about, going into like a kiosk at a mall and trying to capture, scans there. You see some companies doing that. Have you seen anyone really successful with that? And then the other option is to have like a box store that's sort of a standalone, separate brand. What about some of those models?
Yeah, I think the kiosk is a total experiment because, it's for Black Friday weekend or something like that before the Christmas shopping. And the ROI is there, but you have to really convince people, to come get a scan with free teeth whitening or a free gift card to the mall stores or something like that. So you kind of have to have a cost associated with a lead, and then see if you can turn that into a patient. So not so great. But in every town across the United States of really any size, let's say above 150,000 people, I'm seeing an orthodontist put a scanning center in. I think retail is big in the future. I think we don't know all we need to know about it yet, but we do know that people in the right setting will walk by, a drive-by essentially, and say, I've been thinking about, thinking about that for a long time. I think I'll go in and see what this is all about. And those are largely adult patients, but those practices are then referring to their own practice. So they're not, in a Invisalign store. They're not a do-it-yourself kind of store. And I think we'll see retail and orthodontists for going forward more and more and more.
Interesting. So again, lots of options. I'm mulling over some myself. We've tried kind of having the not good, better, best, but sort of like good and best, and it just, I find myself not wanting to offer it that much, so it's a difficult thing. I think it's having to retrain my mind, and certainly in some conversations, you offer a compromise because that's the option that someone wants.
Yeah, I think the fear is, my top tier price goes up, they all go down here,
right? And
then all of a sudden, what have I done in my business?
Yeah.
But so we have to be smart about it. Again, sure. I'm seeing people do it effectively, and so find those people that are doing it. I challenge the AAO at this leadership meeting, find those people that are doing it and put them on the podium so they can tell their story. I think it's important.
Well,
put them on this podcast.
Well, I saw one in particular. I won't call him out, but I saw him commenting.
Yeah.
He got one of the redhead questions correct. He was also remarking at how many presidents there are with red hair. There's only 2% of the population.
We're unique and smart.
20% of presidents to some degree. I think if you're claiming a red beard, I think that's stretching it, but we'll take it. All right, so a couple more questions. We're going to wrap up. We got about 8 minutes. What are 3 things that all successful orthodontic offices have in common? I think, again, the value in speaking with someone like you is that you have worked with orthodontic offices probably in almost every state at different sizes, and so you have a real idea of all the ins and outs of all those different varieties. So what do you see as sort of a common thread? 3 things that make orthodontic offices successful.
Yeah, and success isn't just about, how much money you collect or how much you make or anything like that, but, there's a lot of people who are very satisfied with their practice. I think the common things that I see is, you have to be a leader and you have to kind of enjoy that role, but the leader has defined the value or the mission statement and the vision for the practice, and has been able to teach that and motivate his or her team to present that to the patient base and so forth. And that's a learned skill that not everybody comes out of the box knowing how to do, but the successful practices have that at the top. And you can actually walk in a practice and within about 15 seconds, you can feel the difference in a practice like that you don't feel in another practice. And then I think, they're committed to being lifelong learners. They're experimenters. They try new things, and if they fail, they don't just fold up their tent and go home. They say, okay, that didn't work. Let's try this, and they get good help. And the 4th thing I would say is they're profitable. I mean, a good successful business makes a lot of profit, and those are the happiest people that I run across. So, some pretty common threads. Being a leader is we don't graduate from resident school and know how to lead a team.
Sure.
But that's something you can learn how to do. So get some help.
Yeah, absolutely. I think leadership is the tough thing. So I think, naturally when you start a practice from scratch and you have no employees, you're the leader, de facto leader. I think as the team has grown, it's important to delegate for many reasons. But I think sometimes you sort of give up your leadership, and I've kind of had to shift back into that. And you want to empower team members to be leaders, but I think what you're sort of getting at is the overall sort of mission statement or the why of the practice needs to be consistently stated. I've heard you in many different answers tonight talking about culture, about leadership, and it's about a singular vision for a practice such that it will be successful in the face of anything.
Yeah, and it can be different for, there's just so many variations of that theme. In the 70s and 80s, When I was just getting out and getting started, we did vision statements and put them on plaques and put them on the wall. We don't see that much that anymore, and we kind of poo-pooed that for a while. But it's coming kind of back into vogue, and I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, for sure. All right, fantastic job. We're going to jump right into our TDO top 5. I had to adapt it a little bit, but this is our lightning round.
Okay.
So if you weren't working with orthodontist, what would you be doing?
I'm trained as a geologist, so I'd be drilling oil wells in Texas somewhere.
That's amazing. Okay. In 2 to 3 words, what is your favorite thing about your job?
My team that I get to work with every day is my favorite thing. My clients would be right after that.
Okay. What's the one thing you wish residents discovered sooner?
Go borrow another $1 million to buy a practice is the smartest thing you can do.
Okay. Yeah, I always tell people get to equity as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
So who is your biggest influence and why?
Equally to Reggie Campbell and Charlie Paparelli. They were angel investors in Atlanta that I got to know as a young single guy, and then were instrumental in my life, helped me get this company launched, have given me tons of advice, almost all of which has come true, and stuck by me in some really difficult times in my own personal life. They're just incredible.
Awesome. Good answer. What do you want to be remembered by, Chris?
A man who loved his family well.
Awesome. Great. That's it.
No more games?
There's no more games, but you know what there is? There is applause for you.
All right. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
This was great.
You know, Chris, what game should I have done, you know? Should we have played Twister? Would that have been
No.
We actually played Twister as a family the other day, and that game is can be really awkward.
That's right.
So I landed on my son, and I think I hurt him. I'm sorry about that, Charlie. All right, so I want to thank Chris Bentson for coming on the show. Just so you know, and he said it at the very beginning, he had a very busy week. He was flying here and there. We had a dinner tonight. Like, we're both tired. And that's why we kind of accelerated this 30 minutes. But I really appreciate the energy, and I know a lot of this is easy for you, but there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes in terms of answering the questions, and I really appreciate you for the time. Chris has always been very kind to me from very early on, and you've always helped me. There's a couple times where I've called you in the past, and I don't think I ever paid you a dime, and so I probably owe you. I may have an invoice that I've not closed, but always very, very willing to share and to help, and I really appreciate it, because there's a time is before a lot of the Facebook groups where there's no one else I could have asked. And so, you know, you go to the first person you can think of, and it's oftentimes you. So thanks to you. I'm sure that a lot of the people out there have done the same with you, and we really do appreciate you for being a part of this industry and for being cool. Okay?
Yeah, thanks for having an old guy on the podcast. I mean,
No,
I don't know if viewership is going to go down.
We're
or not,
trying
but
to
it's gonna be all
increase
right.
the viewership in our golden ages. Yeah, no, I'm kidding. I don't know who our next guest is going to be. We are going to figure that out, but I'll be back pretty soon. As always, you can go to Apple Podcasts and you can listen to this later. It'll also live here in the Digital Orthodontist. While you're there, if you don't mind, give us a 5-star review and subscribe. We'd really appreciate that. Thank you to everyone who's done that. And then thank you to everyone who tuned in. I see a lot of the comments going on. I appreciate Ryan and Tanner and all you guys for saying thank you and good job. We really do appreciate you for listening. It's fun for us to see all the comments going by as we do this. I had fun.
Me too.
I hope you had fun. Have a fabulous weekend. And from all of us here at the Digital Orthodontist Live, I'm Dr. Kyle Fagala, and I'm signing off as soon as I can play this song because it's got to play. And here we go. There we go. Yep. Thank you guys so much. Thank you, Mary. Pat, I second everything you're saying about Chris. There you go.
I can't read it.
Sorry. You can't read it? Have your readers on? Pat DeCiccio said that he said good things about you. So thank you. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you later. Bye-bye.